or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to take a look at something weird that is going on with Shrouded Fable. You see, I'm always checking in on sets and seeing how they're doing. And Shrouded Fable is a set which, frankly, has been a little bit underwhelming. And the thing is, I'm not entirely sure why. Yes, I know it's a smaller set, but there are a bunch of big cards in there. And certainly, I checked in on, what we would expect to be the top 3 cards in the set. I'm talking about Gold Earthen Vessel, Special Illustration Rare Serendipity, and Special Illustration Rare Cassiopeia. And if we have a look at what's happened over the past 6 months, for your Earthen Vessel, now it did jump up on release, but it's since come down a little bit and is coming down steadily. If we have a look at Serendipity, it's actually been pretty much just a straight downturn since release, which, to be fair, is generally what we expect, right? When we have these big cards, they're way too high on release, and people get overexcited, and then as time goes by, the price kind of gradually goes down, and that's where we're left. This is exactly what we expect. Nothing weird is going on here. And then if we have a look at Cassiopeia, which was supposed to be, the big card in the set, very big in Japan and all of that, over the last 6 months, again, we see the exact same thing. And that is to say that it's just been going down since the release of the set. Started off high, has been going down ever since. But none of this is surprising to me. The 3 big cards, your Earthen Vessel, Serendipity, Cassiopeia, going down, and okay, fine, I know Earthen Vessel jumped on release, but then kind of stayed there and started creeping down. This is exactly what we would expect to see. Nothing weird going on. And then I started checking a bunch of the other cards. And it turns out there are a bunch of other cards in Shrouded Fable which actually are going up pretty consistently. And by consistently, honestly, I might be underselling it. They're kind of spiking in a way which I wasn't really expecting. And oh yeah, we're talking about the illustration rares. And I don't think I'm just not thinking. I know, I've looked at the data. We're not just talking about the big ones here. There are some big illustration rares in the set. Things like Persian and Dust Noir, which, we'll get to in a minute. That's not what we're talking about here. We are pretty much talking about the illustration rares as a class here. And like I say, it's not happening with the special illustration rares. I've shown you all that. Peturunt's legitimately playable. Peturunt is a good playable card. And actually what we see from Peturunt over the past 6 months is it's just gone down. Now, it's only gone down from 28 to 21. It's not some kind of huge drop like that. It's basically gone down by 25% by a quarter. But the point is, the special illustration rares, the playable cards, the gold cards, the cards that most of the time we would expect to be the big ones in the set, they're just going down nicely. And it's the illustration rares. They're the ones that are actually going up, honestly, pretty consistently at this point. And look, they're not all big cards. The lowest among them is your Tapu Bulu, currently sitting there at $4. But even that one has actually jumped up in recent times. That one kind of, don't get me wrong, it's kind of gone down and then gone back up again. But, even this one is actually starting to make some waves here, which again is a little bit bizarre. It's Tapu Bulu. But what's basically happening here is people as a whole are going, hey, you know what? These are actually starting to jump up now, and that is attracting people towards some of the lower ones, I think is fair to say. The second smallest one is your Q font. Lovely artwork, incidentally. But if we look at the last 6 months, it's gone down and then straight back up again. Now, interestingly, of course, if you were to cut that graph in half and just look at the last 3 months, you would actually see it going up quite sharply. Part of the reason I'm showing you 6 months here is to give you better data and a slightly more honest look. I could show you, hey, look at the last 3 months, Q-Font is spiking, which is true, but I think we need to look at kind of 6 months and put it into a bit more context. But let's not be flicking around the bottom that generally are consistently going up. Most of them are following a very similar pattern here, which is they went down on release and now they've gone up again. I'll show you one more, my boy Beware. Love Beware. My favourite illustration rare in the set. It's following the same graph. The lower end illustration rares are generally following this exact same graph, which is to say, going down on release, and then since they have gotten to the same point they were before, or in the case of some of them, not much, but just like a tiny weeny bit higher. But then we get to the bigger ones, the ones that are a little bit more sought after. Let's go the other way. Let's go to the top. Let's go to Persian. How is Persian an $80 card? And I'm showing you the past 6 months here, but you'll notice this one, we saw a little bit of a down on release. That did happen. And then a gigantic spike. Yeah. Persian has not seen a little bit of a drop. No. Persian has gone silly. And here's the thing about Persian, right? Yes, I know it's a Gen 1 Pokemon, and it's Giovanni's favorite and all of that. But I don't think there's anything in the Pokemon or in the artwork or in the playability, because this card's seen no play, which actually puts this out as a particularly interesting card. I don't think there's anything here which really justifies it being as high as it is. I don't want to be rude, but this Persian is an $80 card? Why? Don't get it, frankly, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get it. This just seems a little bit weird and unusual. How about the number 2 card in the set? How about Houndoom? Guess what happened to that? Flicked around $25 for a while and then boom, now it's up at like $53. And again, I'm not saying Houndoom isn't cool. Canonically, the story of the card is they're chasing Heracross, which is a little bit morbid. But the artwork's cool. But there's nothing here to suggest it should be as high as it is. Nothing in the card art or the Pokemon or the playability. This one is just absolutely rocketed. And I showed you the other day that we're seeing this all around, whereby these illustration rares, once or twice a set, they're randomly jumping up. But the interesting thing about Shrouded Fable is it's not once or twice a set. Like, take Duskull. Duskull is actually playable. Like, genuinely playable. It's gone up to $44. And the art here by James Turner is absolutely phenomenal. How Duskull is below Persian and Houndoom, I don't know. I know Persian is a Gen 1 Pokemon. I do understand that. But I think the artwork here actually is genuinely kind of special. And the card is genuinely kind of playable. So the fact that this is so low is baffling to me. And again, it's not low. It's $44 for an illustration rare. Bearing in mind the illustration rares are 1 in 12 packs. That's the general cadence we tend to see from them. And all of a sudden, I've just shown you the top 3, and the top 3 are averaging over $50. That's bizarre. We can have a look at Cresselia. Now, Cresselia is only $30, but look at what's happened to Cresselia. Same kind of thing. We did see a small dip on release, but that small dip on release did not last very long, and now all of a sudden we are spiking up. It never broke $15 on release, and then since then, we've actually more than doubled that. We're up to over $30. And this strikes me as a kind of thing which is unusual. To have an entire, well, not an entire set, but having a large portion of a set doing that, and again, none of them are crashing here, that's just weird. Now, Dusknoir has actually done a similar kind of thing. It went down, went up, went down, went up. But again, if you have a look here, it's still higher than it was on release. You're still talking basically $30 for an illustration rare. And this one, again, it is incredibly playable. Same James Turner artwork, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. but it's the one that drops, 13 damage counts on one of your opponent's Pokemon. C's playing a huge bunch of decks right now. Well, apparently this is just a thing. But this one I get. This one makes sense. You know what doesn't make sense to me? Horsey. And look, I like Komatsu's artwork. I think Komatsu's artwork is phenomenal. But this is not a good card. And I know Horsey's a Gen 1 Pokemon, but is that what we're going to do now? Are we just going to spike all the Gen 1 Pokemon that have artwork rares, illustration rares? That seems weird to me. Not sure why we're doing that. We have, because I'm sorry, but a random Horsey at $25, spiking up, it's gone up 50% since release when you look at the graph as a whole. How is that a thing? Dusclops, again, I get, because it's part of that evolution line. You can KO it to drop 5 damage counters. It sees a bunch of play. It's got that James Turner artwork. And usually this is kind of what I'd expect. Like your Dusclops and your Dusknoir, we'd look at that and go, well, yeah, but, the James Turner artwork is generally very popular. They're very playable cards. $25-$30 for an illustration rare is high. But, these are the top ones in the set, so it makes sense. But these aren't the top ones in the set. Persian, Houndoom, Horsey. How are these cards so high? The other one which has done a big jump since release is Zorua. And look, I know everybody likes Zorua. And the artwork by Rentier is absolutely phenomenal. But we're talking about a not particularly playable card that's sitting there at like $20. And essentially your answer here is, this is happening to the illustration rares in Shrouded Fable. This is a thing. Shrouded Fable illustration rares. We got ones on the bottom end like your Tapu Bulu, like your Beware, like your Q-Font, which are just not making many waves. But even those have not gone down now since release. And then you've got the big ones over on the other end. And I think things like $80 for Persian is absurd, frankly. I think, Horsey sitting there at a $25 card is ridiculous. I think having Houndoom sitting there at over $50 is weird. Bearing in mind, Persian and Houndoom are the number 1 and 3 cards in the set. They're above Fezandipiti. The special illustration rare with a much lower pull rate of an incredibly playable EX that sees playing a whole bunch of decks. In what world are Persian and Houndoom above Fezandipiti? And this is why I keep saying this stuff doesn't make sense. I'm not saying these aren't cool cards. I'm not saying that the pull rates aren't quite low for them. I'm not saying I don't want these cards. I'm saying that when you compare them to other similar cards in other sets, or even equivalent cards in the same set, we sit here and go, well, that just doesn't work. Like Fezandipiti and Earthen Vessel should be the runaway number 1 and 2 cards in the set. That's what should be happening with Shrouded Fable. Instead, we got a bunch of these illustration rares which have been pumped up, and frankly, it's weird to me. But hey-ho, that's what's going on. Now it's over to you guys. Which of these cards have you pulled? Which of these cards have you picked up? Which of these cards excite you? Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shoutouts on the channel like the lovely Stegoraptor, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.